Before we start this video, a large thank you to Vitor, Noah, Nicholas, and Ella Jovan Yankins for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And a massive thank you to Halo Burner, Ryan Bellin, and Eric for their continued and immense support to the channel on Patreon. It is greatly appreciated, gentlemen, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, today we're going to continue with shops. So today let's make it so we can actually get an inventory populated. Let's start by going to the dialogue end event here, and we don't actually have anything implemented on dialogue ended for opening that window, the NPC window that is. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to say NPC window. I should have called that dialogue window. Anyway, maybe we'll change that later. So let's go to the player UI manager because we don't actually also have that menu referenced as a variable, so we can't actually open the menu from there. Also, I'm going to change the name of it because I believe it's not using our naming conventions of player UI. So I'm going to make a hide and inspector public. Oh, my mouse is about to die. We're going to say player UI, and then I'm going to call it, let's actually go to the menu first. Right now it's called dialog window UI manager. So let's rename that to player UI dialog window manager, and let's get rid of the UI over here, and I'll save that. So we'll call it that, and I'm going to say player UI dialog window manager, and then the variable name will be player UI dialog window manager. Now, as we've done before, let's copy that, and on awake we can get this. I'm going to say player UI dialog window manager is equal to get component in children player UI dialog window manager. Alright, cool. Save that. Go back to character dialog. And now we can reference our player UI manager, reference this specific manager, and open it after a fixed frame. Looks good. Now, we have a way to actually engage with this menu, but we're still not actually setting up the menu after it's been opened. So let's hop over to the player UI dialog window manager, because remember, this is going to do some things after you open it, depending on who you're talking to. It will basically make some options available and some not, and we'll also set the character's name. So let's override both open menu and open menu after fixed frame. I don't think we're going to use open menu ever, but just in case, we'll drop this in here as well. Let's make a private void enable dialog options based on conversation character. And I might change the name of that function in a moment. Let's see, because I believe I call it something different. Let's say AI character manager. Let's make a variable called conversation character, and we get that from our local player, which we get from the player UI manager, and then we reference the player interaction manager, and then we're saving our dialogue character. That's what I called it, dialogue character. So I'm going to rename this from conversation character to dialogue character to keep it consistent, and I'm going to rename this function from enable dialogue options to enable dialogue options based on the dialogue character. Now, if the dialogue character is not present, then we're going to simply return and close the menu. So let's just say if dialog character is equal to null, close menu, and then return. Okay, we can save that. Now, let's copy this function and paste it on open menu and open menu after fixed frame. Again, I don't think we're going to be using open menu, but just in case. Now let's go and say AI character name.text is equal to, and I believe we have a variable called just character name under dialog character. Yeah, character name. All right, cool. Now we can enable and disable the options depending on what they're able to do. So you could put this thing where you want. You could put it on inventory manager if you want. I'm gonna put it on the regular manager. I'll make a header right below activation beacon called interactions. Honestly, you can give the AI character their own interaction manager and put that there if you'd like. We're gonna say public bool is shop equal false by default, and is blacksmith is equal to false by default. Yeah, this would be really good on an AI character interaction manager, honestly, but I'll put it here for now because there's only literally two variables. So let's go over to the player dialog window manager again, and we're gonna check and see if the AI character is a shop and if it is blacksmith. So if it's a shop, we're going to enable the buy items button and sell items button. So we're going to say buy items button dot game object dot set active is true, and then sell items button dot game object set active dot true. Okay, and we can set these both at false right at the top, so that way whenever you talk to a new character, it's going to set every single button we have to false. We'll do the same thing with the blacksmith button. And you know what? I'll just implement that anyway, since we have it up there. I'll uncomment it out, assign the variable, and we'll set it up as well. So again, any button you have, basically set it to default right away, or set it to false, sorry, disable it. And then depending on the character you're talking to, if it's relevant, you can activate it down here. So then we can say if dialog character is blacksmith, we can activate the blacksmith button. And you can do this with whatever interactions you want. Obviously, this works for more than just a shopkeeper or a blacksmith. Any weird thing you have in your game like that, you can do it. I have people that like enchant your weapons and add gems and stuff, so they have their own interactions. So I'll copy the sell button and I'll call it Smith, change the text to Smith. I shouldn't be doing this. You should make prefabs for your buttons so you can reuse them. I will do that in another episode. Drag in as my blacksmith variable, disable the menu. But yeah, make prefabs for your buttons so you can change them all at once. Make sure your character dialogue ID is set to shopkeeper, and make sure you have the shopkeeper's dialogues in your world's save game manager list. And now I think we're good to test it. Oh, I forgot something. On current dialogue ended, this should not be here. Do not get rid of your character, your dialogue character on ended. It should only be on canceled because you end a dialogue every time a conversation portion ends. You want to keep that as your dialogue target until you leave their interaction radius, which triggers on dialogue canceled. Now, on dialogue canceled, we're going to say if you have the NPC window as an end event, we're going to close that by saying player UI manager.instance, and then we can reference the player UI dialog window manager close window or close menu, and then do a break. So every time you leave the radius, it will just close that NPC window that you've opened up. Now go to your shopkeeper. I'm gonna give him a name. We'll call him totally normal shopkeeper. That's a bit wordy actually. I'm just gonna call him Steve. And I am going to tick is shop, and I'm not sure why Unity's throwing me an error in the inspector there. I'll check that out later. Don't think it's related to us. Good day. Okay, now it should open up. Cool, yeah. So it says Steve. We have talk, buy, and sell. Now just to confirm this is working, I'm going to change him to not a shopkeeper and change his name to John. And then I will back out of this, go back into the game, talk to him again, and yes, it says John, and we can only talk to him. All right, cool. So we know the options to load the correct buttons are working. Now I'm going to rename him to Steve, and I'm also going to go to my player UI dialog window manager up here. And I'm going to close everything, or minimize it rather, and I'm going to make a public void open shop function. We'll say open shop menu. Now, thinking about this, there's room for open buy and open sell menus, but we'll get to that later. Let's just make sure it works first. Go to your player UI manager and reference your shop manager by saying player UI shop manager, making a variable for it, and then getting it on awake by saying player UI shop manager is equal to get component and children. And basically, if you hit this option, we're going to translate to the shop menu from this conversation menu, and then we'll open that up. So we can say player UI.instance.shop manager open menu, and again, we'll make one for specifically opening, buying, and selling, but for now this is fine. Let's just make sure it works. And we want to close this menu before opening that next menu. All right, looks good. Now go to your player UI shop manager, because right now this is totally empty, and we can override open menu and override open menu after fixed frame. Now, when we're opening the buying menu specifically, we want to populate the inventory of the shopkeeper. So let's make a private void for populate shopkeeper inventory or populate shop inventory. And let's call that on both of these opens for now. We'll make a separate open for buy and sell later in the video, but let's just get the logic out for now for actually populating the shop. So what do we want to do? Well, we need a shopkeeper to reference his inventory. So we can say AI character manager shopkeeper is equal to, we can get this from the local player and the player UI manager, because you're the one interacting with UI all the time as the local player. And then we reference our conversation target, our dialogue character, from the interaction manager. If the shopkeeper is null, obviously, you want to close this menu and return. Likewise, too, if the shopkeeper has no stock or their inventory is empty, lacking any kind of items, we also want to return. So you see here we have an equipment inventory slot, and this is what we use for our character, but we need these three functions for deselect, select, and add, and we can use this exact same logic for the shopkeeper and honestly any other inventory that you have. So let's make a new class called UI inventory slot, and what we're going to do is we're going to move those three functions from the equipment inventory slot to this one and make it derived from this class. Delete your start and update functionality and drop in your namespace as is per tradition. And let's go over here and yoink deselect select add and all your variables and delete it from the equipment slot and then paste it on the inventory slot. Now I don't know why that was serialized and public. I'm guessing I changed it to public later. Let's make sure we drop in using Unity Engine UI. And now let's make this derive from UI inventory slot. Cool, now we have this base class we can use, and we can make a new class for our shopkeeper slot that will function the exact same way, but instead of equipping an item, you're going to buy an item. So we can say UI underscore shop underscore inventory underscore slot. Beautiful. Now let's delete our start and update functionality again, as is per tradition. Drop in your namespace. If you're one of those people who set up your classes to already have your namespace, you're kind of breaking tradition, but that is acceptable. Now we can say UI inventory slot makes derive, and let's make a new function called a buy item, public void. Nothing in it right now, but just to have it there. All right, go to your equipment inventory slot prefab, and let's duplicate it. And I am going to drag this out into our UI folder, because I'm going to make another folder for it. What am I going to call this folder? Let's call it shop menu. Drag in that inventory slot and rename it to shop inventory slot. All right, luckily this is going to work identically, except we need to change the script from UI equipment slot to our UI shop inventory slot. So basically just copy the variables from item icon and the highlight icon, and these are going to work exactly the same. And then instead of selecting the slot and deselecting the slot on your UI equipment slot script, we do it from the UI shop inventory slot script. So let's go here. I think I just selected the wrong one in the drop menu. I did. Okay, let's replace it. And then on click, you're going to be buying the item, which right now has no function, or rather no logic. It has a function, but we'll come back to that. Now, under Player UI Shop Manager, let's make a serializable field for a game object called Shop Inventory Slot Prefab. We're going to instantiate one of these for every item your shopkeeper has in their inventory. And we're going to do that under the parent object that we created in the last episode. So if the shopkeeper inventory item count is 0, as I said before, I got distracted, we're going to close the menu and then simply return. Okay, let's say your shopkeeper's there and you pass the check. What's next? Well, let's make a serializable field for a transform. We're going to call this our inventory parent, and this is where all of the children objects for your inventory slots will be instantiated. I guess I should call it inventory instantiation parent, so it's super clear. Okay, now let's make our UI inventory slot. So this is an array of our shop inventory. So we're going to declare this every time we open a shop, because it's going to change, obviously, when we change the items in the inventory. Now, under populate shop inventory, let's go down here, and we're just going to say right below the inventory count check, we'll do a for loop. And we're going to iterate through our inventory instantiation parent transform, and we're going to get the child count, because each child count is an inventory slot. And if I is less than shopkeeper, AI character inventory manager items in inventory, then we're going to instantiate a new inventory slot for them. So basically, if the child count does not match the shopkeeper item count, or it's less than, we're going to say ++. Oh, we're going to say I is equal to instantiation parent transform.child count. Probably should have said that first. So if not, we are going to instantiate, and we're going to instantiate, what did I call that? I already forgot. Shop inventory slot prefab. And we instantiate it at the transform, which is our inventory instantiation parent. Okay, cool. So 2 comments here. If there's no shopkeeper, return. If the shopkeeper has no items or inventory, return. And then we're going to create an inventory slot for each item the shopkeeper has. So we might already have inventory slots instantiated from previous interactions. That's fine. We can reuse those. We're going to get to that. Let's do a for loop right down here, right below that, and say inventory slots. I think it's kicked my mic. Very sorry. We're going to say if shop inventory.length for shop inventory.length++. We're going to say if shop inventory I is null, continue skip this slot. So we're basically checking every shop inventory slot that's already exists. And then we're going to say shop inventory I clear slot. We don't have this yet. What's this going to do? Well, let's go to our base class. We have one for adding an item, but we have no reason right now to remove an item. So let's make a public void clear item. And then I am going to open up some curly brackets, and what do we do? I'm checking nev here, but I got a lot more going on. So I think in our project, all we're going to need to do is clear the current item. And then we're going to say item icon.sprite is equal to null. And then we're going to say item icon enabled is equal to false. I think that's good. Later on, we'll add a count, an item amount count when we sell quantities of items. But for now, we'll keep it simple. So we're going to say clear item reset any old items from previous shops. Because let's say you open up a shop and then go to a different guy and open up a new shop. We're going to use the same inventory slots, so we just got to clear out the stuff from the old shop. Now, right below that, let's do another for loop, and we're going to iterate through all of the items in our shopkeeper's inventory. And what we're going to do is then iterate through all of the inventory slots we've instantiated, and we're going to add items to those slots, depending on what the shopkeeper has in his current slot. So first we need to check to make sure the item is not null. If it is, simply continue. And then we're going to say shop inventory I dot add item, and we're going to pass the shopkeeper's items in inventory I. Okay, looks good. Now, right below that, let's do another for loop. A lot of for loops in this function. And we are going to iterate through the shopkeeper's, or sorry, the shop inventory dot length. And then we're going to say if shop inventory I is equal to null. Whoops, don't know what I'm typing there. We're going to say continue. And then we're going to say if shop inventory current item is null, we're also going to say shop inventory I dot game object dot set active is equal to false. So basically disable any empty shop slots that you have. Just take the game objects and disable them. That way you don't need to instantiate more later and delete them. We can just re-enable them as we need them. Likewise, right above the inventory check count, we're going to enable all the slots just right up here. So we're going to say if shop inventory equals null, continue. I forgot to put that down there. I'll do that. So I'll just copy that right now. Do it real quick right here and paste. So we're going to enable all of the inventory slots up here, and then we're going to assign them items from the character's inventory, and then any slots that are empty after all this happens, we disable their game objects. Okay, looks good. Now let's save that. And now let's go back to the project and search up the shopkeeper character. Where's he to? Right here. All right, good. Now go down to your AI character inventory manager, go to the items in inventory, and let's give him some stuff. So let's just give him knight's armor. Let's give him 3 items. We'll give him knight's armor, we'll give him the medium shield, and we'll give him the straight sword. All right, now if I go into the game, what is this? The same name as serialized multiple class. This is not supported. Unity editor internal. Okay, I think that's just Unity engine, unless I did something I don't recall, but I don't recognize that. There's none of my scripts listed. We'll come back to that if it becomes a problem. So let's go to the dialog window manager, and let's go down to the talk option, and I'm going to say select button on enables. This is always the first option you select with the controller, and then under buy, let's drag in our dialog window manager, and let's go to open shop manager. I guess now is a good time actually to make it go to specifically the buy menu. Okay, so let's right click open shop menu on our player UI dialog window manager. Let's change this to open buy from shop menu. Let's save that, and now let's go to the shop menu, and we have 2 options here. So let's make a public void open buy menu, and then we can put our populate shop inventory in here and remove it from these 2 open menus, because all the open menu does is open the actual menu itself. So we'll call open menu right before that, right here on the open buy menu. So the difference between opening and the buy menu and the sell menu is just what inventory gets populated. One is yours and one is the shopkeeper's. All right, open buy menu, let's change it there. Let's go over here and reference open buy from shop, and now let's save the UI. If I go into the game here, is it gonna work? I think I forgot something. Let's see. Buy. Okay, we got an error. Let's double click it. And the error brought me to the fact that I forgot to assign my variables for the shop inventory slot prefab and also my parent, which is down under here in the merchant window, and then under here in the inventory background, it is called the inventory parent. All right, let's save it again. Let's go back in. Did I get it this time? Let's see. Talk to the gentleman. Buy. And right now, let's click this. I'm having another error. So populate shop inventory. You can see I got the 3 slots, but I've actually never declared my shop inventory. So after you instantiate all the slots, say shop inventory is equal to instantiation parent.get components in children, and we're going to say UI inventory slot. So basically, after you're done instantiating all your slots, set the shop inventory to basically every inventory slot you have as a child of the parent. All right, 3rd time's a charm. Totally. Let's go back in the game. Let's open up the shop. Buy. Boom. There we go. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so we have a way to populate the inventory. But right now, you can't actually buy these items because there's no logic. So in the next episode, we're going to assign items a value, and we're going to be able to buy items from our inventory, or rather from the shopkeeper's inventory. And then we can work on selling items, and then if you guys want, we can visit buying limited or unlimited sets of items. And if you guys want, though, we can skip that. I can go on and do some AI stuff. Just let me know in the comments. But it's very similar to buying regular items. You can just basically tag a stock item as limited or unlimited. All right, gentlemen, I know I say this all the time, but genuinely, I'm very thankful to my patrons and each of you who continue to like and comment on the video. Seriously, the series exists because of all of you, and I'm very grateful to be here. So thank you again. I hope you all have a very lovely weekend, and I will see you guys next week.